Okay, I'm going to narrow it right down and base it on a quote by Baudelaire, where he put forward ideas that he hoped artists of his day would respond to on how to celebrate modernity whilst capturing something that would be eternal, balance the past and the present. In other words, don't produce trite works, but find a method of producing art that would endure and be eternal. He said artists should aspire to extract from fashion whatever element it may contain of poetry within history, to distill the eternal from the transitory. I'm just going to take one example and talk about how these two elements, the eternal and the transitory, could be represented in art, and what was understood by the eternal. I'm going to discuss Manet's painting of the bar at the Folies Bergère, and next to it is Baptisms of Christ by Piero della Francesca. And Manet is normally discussed in terms of modernism and is rarely the idea of Renaissance balance and harmony, and the canon is not usually applied to Manet. So one of my themes is good art often is based on duality. It's sometimes full of paradox. It's full of things that are mysterious and don't spell out a meaning, so you go back to them. You go back to the work to gather more from it. Just as Turner said, and Constable, you don't use one drawing more than once. You've got to have a new frame of mind. So, structure. The structure of this painting is based on horizontals and verticals in balance with a few circles. And you've got repeated horizontals and you've got verticals. And then in the center you have a figure. And the figure is looking out straight at you, just as in the Piero della Francesca painting, the figure of Christ is looking out at you. Now, the geometric structure based around balance and harmony and proportion goes back to Greece, to the beginning of the canon in Hellenistic sculpture, through architecture, written about by Vitruvius, then by Alberti, based on harmonious balances between these very basic geometric shapes. And those basic geometric shapes can give an image a certain order that can give it that eternal feeling. This was something Cézanne also thought about when Impressionists were painting moments. He wanted to get back some structure into his paintings so that they too would exist on a par with paintings in the Louvre, with classical paintings. The other side is the transitory. How did Manet depict the transitory? And I'm also going to argue that even in Renaissance times, those qualities had been explored as well. So the transitory is all to do with the subject. It's a bar, and there's constant movement in the background. And it's a complicated painting because you've got different styles. So you have the stability and the structure in the centrally placed figure in the position of a Christ looking out, but the bar is made up out of dabs of paint, daubs, smears, smoky-looking shapes, and that captures the feeling of the Folies Bergère, and that is the quality that captures the moment and the transitory world and something happening in the here and now. But still, those smears and smudges, you can go back to Leonardo, you can go back to the Mona Lisa. It's a double image in some ways. The sexuality of the figure is not completely clear, partly male, partly female. The shapes around the eyes are inverted so that the shadow under the eye is almost like the shape above the eye. And then most of all, Leonardo was famous for his scumbled rubbed drawings where he emphasized that if you stick to one line, you're restricting the drawing, you're not allowing it to grow, you're not showing your thoughts, and you're closing down potential. So you have those two aspects. Also, this fast technique is a way of being fleeting. Now, Baudelaire added a third thing. Imagination is what brings these two together, brings the transitory and brings the eternal. And that imagination is then what the artist brings to it. And their imagination is fed by their training and by the concept of improvement and working on the discoveries of others, so innovation. So Michelangelo went to study Masaccio's images. Cubism, is on moving on from Cézanne. So imagination is what would bring these together, and the imagination is also what will fight against the restriction of a canon that is lazily stuck to and repeated, that will produce cliched images. The canon is only something to feed off from and bounce forward, and that notion of progression goes right back to the early Renaissance.